Welcome to part 2 in our introduction to flipped learning. This time we'll focus on why, in my opinion, flipped learning is beneficial. Nothing I say here is meant to be critical of other teaching methods. What I will assert is that for me personally, the results and feedback have been overwhelmingly positive. Okay, the advantages. Let's start with the individual learning space. I believe a big advantage here is students can process direct instruction at their own pace. If they don't understand something in the online lesson, they can rewind and watch it again. They can also control the pacing of the video by slowing it down or speeding it up, and in both cases still hearing comprehensible audio. Let me explain why I think self-pacing is so valuable. According to cognitive theorists, what you see here represents the stages of information processing for humans. We first take in information using our senses. There it lasts in sensory memory for about a second. And if we want to remember anything for the next week or the next day or even the next minute, we need to get it way over here to long-term memory. Well, the bottleneck for accomplishing that is working memory. Working memory represents when you're actively thinking of something. And if you don't take steps to effectively process new concepts in working memory and try to make them meaningful, they will be gone in less than a minute. So when taking an online lesson, or for that matter when doing problems in class or practicing problems from an old test, how can you make new concepts meaningful? Well, the long answer will be coming in another video. The short and most important answer for your chemistry course is to thoughtfully, deliberately solve problems and answer questions when prompted to do so. And then on anything you just can't understand, write down a specific question you have and ask your teacher about it the next day. Don't rush through the lessons just for the sake of completion. And since all that will take some students more time than others, that's why I believe the self-pacing afforded by the flipped model is so beneficial. Have you ever felt like the student you see here? Cognitive theorists would say your working memory is overloaded. Self-pacing allows you to slow things down and tackle one thing at a time. And since some of the lessons are slideshows like this one, you can always click through those at your own pace. But whether it's a video or a slideshow, the key is to once again, thoughtfully, deliberately work on the problems. Just copying things down for the sake of completion will do virtually nothing for starting the process of getting the new concepts firmly embedded in your long-term memory. You might as well be doing this at your computer. Another advantage in the individual learning space is flexibility. If you have to leave school early because of an away game, or if you miss class due to illness, you can still do the lessons online. Furthermore, I believe there's also a potential benefit for English language learners and students with disabilities. Consider that the YouTube controls allow you to use closed captioning. So in addition to slowing down the audio, you can also add subtitles if you choose to do so. Now, there are some challenges. We can't be sure how engaged students are while doing the online lesson. Did they give careful thought to what they were viewing? Did they engage in deliberate practice and thoughtfully solve problems? Or did they just copy down the answer? I believe these dilemmas are mitigated, however, by the steps we take to hold students accountable, such as checking their lesson notes and analyzing the results of the exit tickets, answers of which can be traced back to individual students. Okay, before moving on to the benefits of the group learning space, I'd like to address one point a skeptical student or parent might have at this point. Even if you bought into the inherent advantages I propose for the online lessons, perhaps you are still thinking it still amounts to a student having to sort of teach themselves. To that I would say, remember what you've seen so far is just half of the picture. The biggest advantage of the flipped learning is what occurs in the classroom, as it becomes much more of an active learning environment. Let's now focus on that. If we think of students now doing their chemistry quote-unquote homework in class, the teacher, as well as their peers, are right there to help. It has been my experience in the flipped model, there are far more teacher-student and student-to-student exchanges related to course content. This additional contact may be most beneficial to those students who, in a more traditional course, might have tried the homework at home and got frustrated to the point of giving up. By doing the problems in class, they can now be scaffolded and redirected in a timely manner. Related to this is students have numerous self-assessment opportunities. If they dedicate themselves to making the best use of their 20 to 30 minutes of problem solving each class, and they aren't shy about seeking out help, they'll know exactly where they stand and what they still need to work on. Finally, I believe there's a more efficient use of class time. Before class each day, I will review the results of the exit tickets. We'll spend much more time going over problems where students struggled rather than going over something almost everybody already understands. Now, Having spelled out some advantages, I again acknowledge there are challenges here as well. For example, I generally assign students to small groups for problem solving. Well, in a post-course anonymous survey I gave my students, 2/3 of those who responded indicated they preferred individual over collaborative work. Not unreasonable, especially since I suspect most of those were higher achieving students who have come to know success in school with mostly individual effort. If you feel the same way, rest assured you'll have plenty of time for individual work. Even when students work in groups, I generally don't force them to actually speak to each other. However, at times I will insist on collaboration. Let me leave you with something that has become the norm in medical education. It's known as interprofessional education, where students from different healthcare fields learn together during all or part of their professional training with the goal of cultivating collaborative practice. The rationale is that once they become practitioners, their profession will require effective communication, teamwork, and interprofessional collaboration. In the 2017-2018 school year, 97% of North American medical schools required interprofessional education. Well, still not convinced about flipped learning? If so, the intent of this video was not necessarily to completely win you over, although that would be nice. Rather, it was to share enough so that you approach it with an open mind. Well, thanks for listening, and don't hesitate to let me know if you have any questions.